all have figured out. We're talking about Ruth and Naomi this morning. You know who they were? One of the short books in the Bible.
Ruth.
The scripture this morning said, "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled." They had judges that ruled back then. And there was famine in the land. And a certain man in Bethlehem of Judah went to dwell in the country of Moab. And he and his wife and 2 sons. The name of the man was Amalek. The name of his wife was Naomi. And his sons were Mahlon and Chilion, Ephraimites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they went into a far country, Moab, and remained there. Now, as it happened, Amalek passed away. And his 2 sons married girls, Oprah, and the other was Ruth. And they also passed away. So that left Naomi with 2 daughter-in-laws that wasn't married at all. Now they lost their husband, brother. So they decided to take a trip to Bethlehem. Well, Naomi basically told her daughter-in-law, says, to Oprah and Ruth, "I think you should go back to your mothers and live with your mother." Neither one wanted to go. They wanted to stay with Naomi. Finally, one did go, and that was Oprah. She went back. But Ruth said, and this is where sometimes you get the words in a wedding. But Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave you, or turn back from following you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me and more also, if anything but death parts you and me." So Naomi left her alone and got bothered no more. Back in those days, usually you remember when, I think it was in Luke, I'm not sure off the bat, but where somebody asked Jesus if the man was married to this woman and he died, she married again, and he had 7 brothers. Whose husband is she when they get to heaven?
Whose wife is she? She's not.
He said, "You don't know the Bible. There'll be no marriage in heaven." And so you have what is called the redeemer, or the person who next of kin redeems them. If there's a next of kin. If there's no next of kin, then what happens is at the end of the Jubilee, things change a little different. But Naomi took off and went to Bethlehem, and as she got to Bethlehem, people were glad to see her. But she left years ago and went away to Moab. And then she introduced Ruth. Ruth was still a young lady, but they called Naomi she says, no, I'm not Naomi. I am Mara. M-A-R-A. Other words, they had to do with, the song written about it called Shaddai. And that's what they were supposed to call her. But she said to them, do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me, and I went out full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why do you call me Naomi? Since the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me. She was kind of bitter, from what I can gather. It wasn't the Lord that done that. We know that. But, so Naomi returned, and Ruth, the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from this country of Moab, now they come to Jerusalem at the beginning of the harvest. They needed food. Ruth went out into the harvest field, and she was gleaning the barley, wheat, or whatever was there. And she was in the field of, guess who? Boaz, who was next of kin. And so she gleaned and so forth. The next day she went out again, and then Boaz met her. I've been told that you have been taking care of your mother-in-law, Naomi, and you're a Moabitess, and she came back to her home. I have instructed my young men to allow you to glean, to leave some behind. In fact, he would basically tell her, said, drop a lot on purpose and let her glean, so that they could have food. And that's where they were getting their food. I may be jumping around, Jerry, but I'm trying to cover most of it. It's interesting. She always listened to her mother-in-law. Whatever her mother-in-law told her to do, she did. Because when she found out that she'd been in that field, that Boaz, the field, that was their redeemer. That was their next of kin. They had somebody that would look after Ruth, would actually eventually marry her. So she, at one time, she told Ruth to go to the threshing floor, where they threshed the wheat, and when he fell asleep, uncover his feet and lay down right beside him. That was an unusual thing. I never heard that before. But anyhow, she did what her mother said, and he apparently felt something around and wasn't sure what it was. He woke up and there was Ruth. And then Ruth had a shawl or something. In other words, she dressed up fairly nice looking, so that when he woke, that he would see her, really see her, look at what's going on. So she did, and he let her get some more grain. Apparently his fields were very fruitful. And another time she did the same thing, only this was a little different. She said, I know that he is next of kin, and he'll take care of you when something happens to me, basically what she was saying. So she fell on her face, bowed down to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? And he goes on and says, it has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of her husband. And you have now lost a father, you lost a husband. The Lord repay you for your words and fully reward you, giving you the God of Israel. Under these wings you have come to for refuge, said he. Let me find favor let me get this where I can read. I still can't use my glasses. Let me find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me, have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. Now Boaz said to her at mealtime, come, let's eat bread, and dip your piece of bread into vinegar. I know some people that would cringe if you said they dipped their bread in vinegar and eat it. It's interesting. Vinegar must have been good because they used it. They mixed it with oil and dipped it in it. It was good. But I was told that vinegar is the worst thing for you. You all ain't heard that before?
They say, but they say vinegar also has a lot of healing properties in it too.
Yep, it is. There's good stuff in it.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was like that. I reckon it depends on the strength of the vinegar.
Right.
This is like you drinking alcohol, depends on the strength, how fast you're gonna get drunk. And so that's what I look at like. So he dipped it in the vinegar. She sat beside the reapers, and he passed parched grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied and kept some back. The reason she kept it back was to take some to Naomi. Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Also let her grain from the bundles fall, in other words, from your bundles fall purposely in front of her so she can glean it and take it. Naomi. So she gleaned the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and was about to take an ephah of barley. How much is an ephah of barley? Does anybody know? No, I have no idea. Three-fifths of a bushel. How big it is. Now, I'm sure you all have lifted a basket of barley. Anybody done that?
I've lifted bags, yeah.
Well, I have lifted bags too.
Yeah.
But now, can you imagine this young lady taking 3/5 of it? A little later on, she had a shawl, very big shawl. He put 6 in that. She took it back to her mother-in-law. That's quite heavy for a young lady. I know because I used to follow a combine, and it would thresh the wheat, dump it on the ground in a bag. I was driving the tractor behind and picking it up and putting it on the wagon. Some were a bushel, some were 2 bushel. 2 bushel got right heavy. But most of it was close to a bushel. Put it in the bag. But I followed that wagon trash all the way around the field. I was whooped when I got to the end of it. So I know what she lifted. So she gleaned in the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about the ephah of barley. Then she took it and went into the city for her mother-in-law what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. In other words, she looked after her mother-in-law. To me, that's a show of kindness, a love. That she did not want to leave her mother-in-law, because her mother-in-law must have been a very smart young lady. She did everything she could to help her daughter-in-law. Be kind one to another, love one another, help one another. Give people things if they need it. If you got it, give it. There's what they call a clothes closet. Anybody know what a clothes closet is?
What a what?
Clothes closet. There's one in Cumberland, and every Tuesday and Thursday it's open. People bring clothes that they don't want and put them in that building. It's been behind the school there in Cumberland. And I so happened to be losing weight, so I had some clothes that was about to fall off, and even when I put them on. So that would be embarrassing. So I took them. I took a whole pile down. When I walked in that building, I never saw so many clothes that people have donated in my life. I mean, they had row after row of hanging clothes. Well, when I took it there, one reason I went was looking for some winter coats for my daughter in Richmond. And she had a raincoat with a hood on it. She had 2 dress coats. They were about $3 each. And she said, well, I'll let you have them all 3 for $2. I just give her $5. I said, take it and go with it. But that's too much. I said, no, not for my daughter then. So I got that, and I bought her a pocketbook she wanted. Well, I found some good things that could be bought and given to my daughter. And then there's some good things that people go in there and buy for others. So I would say that Naomi was kind of like a clothes closet. She was helping her daughter. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, my daughter, shall I not seek security for you that it may be well with you? Now Boaz, whose young women you were with, is not a relative at the threshing floor. Therefore, wash yourself, clean yourself up, anoint yourself, and put on your best garments and go down to the threshing floor. Now she's going to find out what's going on. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. He already knew Naomi. And he's probably by that time figured out that he is next of kin. But we have a problem. There's one next of kin before he is. Now, the Lord works in mysterious ways. He made an appointment to meet this guy. I don't remember his name exactly, but that's not important. But he told him about the next of kin. And so he said, sure, I'll buy the land from the 2 sons and the husband. And Boaz says, now, the rest of the story. Everything they got, you have to take with you, including Ruth. Well, he quickly backed out of that and said, well, that'll just throw my inheritance out of whack. So he wouldn't take it. And being as he didn't take it, they had 10 elders there that were witness to the fact that he denied. And as a result, they saw what happened, and one took off his shoes, give it to another one, sealing the deal. And then Boaz, he got Ruth. And they had a child. Do you know what her child's name was?
Judah. Obed,
Right? Who was Obed?
father of Jesse, who was the father of David.
Jesse. And who was Jesse, father of?
David, soon to be king.
One was king. Isn't it amazing? You look at, as you read through this thing, and you'll find it in Matthew, I believe it is. First chapter of Matthew. This is a chapter that the genealogy, the book of genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob, Jacob begot Judah, and his brothers, Judah begot Perez, Zerah, Perez begot Hezron, and Hezron begot Ram begot Amminadab, Amminadab begot Nashon, Nashon begot Salmon, Salmon begot Boaz. And Boaz, guess who his daughter was? Rahab. Boaz begot Obed by Ruth, Obed got Jesse, and Jesse got David the king, and so on. So there's the lineage, that's how it ended up with Boaz becoming Ruth's husband. Where all of this genealogy come from. So it's interesting. Just remember that she begot Obed, Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot the King David. That's in the, you'll find the genealogy in the first chapter of Matthew, that it goes through 17 is what happened. So all of this happened in a small book called Ruth. And that's how we arrived at the King David. And that's how Boaz became part of it, and then that's how Rahab, I often wondered how in the world she got to it, but that comes from Queen of Ruth. So, and what was Rahab's one thing that she did?
She helped get Jericho conquered.
To help them down the outside of the wall to get away from being killed. She put what they call a red rope. They know he knew exactly where he had to meet her and where he had to go down. So Rahab was instrumental in saving some prophets. It's a story I thought maybe we would read and go over it and just figure out if there's something that we did not know. I think now we've covered most of it. I don't know how many more children that Ruth might have had, but God provided one. That we do know through Boaz. And Boaz was a wealthy person, very, very wealthy. And strong, very well talented, took care of Naomi and Ruth. Until Naomi finally found out who was her next of kin. And that's what started the whole thing. So they all, basically, if you study and read this thing, and I know Chuck does the same thing, you'll find things you didn't think was in there. I'm gonna tell you a story right now. This is kind of just a tad bit off, but my nephew last night was at my brother-in-law's when I was talking to him. And I didn't tell you the whole story, Johnny. It's, my nephew had just become a registered nurse. And it was a hospital that he was working at, not a nursing home. And his duty was this certain floor. He went to that floor, and he had 2 patients in there. And, they both picked up rattlesnakes. Thing is, they were both bitten in the same arm, and they go in the bed like this, holding it. Their hand was hung up. And they couldn't move it, they had to stay there. But they both, shall we say, had some go juice, too much of it. And they picked up this rattlesnake. And they lived, guess where? In Arizona. And there's some big snakes out there. And, he was talking to me, cause I haven't talked to him in years, and, he got in it, and then he told me this story, that he said, I'll be going to church tomorrow, Uncle Bill. I said, really? I said, good, glad so. And this church today, they're performing the cantata of the Great Controversy. Has anybody heard that? If you get a chance to hear it, please do so. Wendy Phipps sang that along with the choir. And this is what this is all about. It's, I kind of went around the corner to get to there, but, if you get a chance, I heard it on 3 ABM with their choir, and Wendy Phipps was there, and he sang it. Beautiful song, the way it was written. And I can't remember, I know who the man is that wrote it, but I can't ever remember his name. And, it's very well written and very well performed. But I hope we learned something from Ruth and Naomi today, and how all of this genealogy come about. But I had never realized, and how many times have you all read that and just never thought about it? I have. And then finally, I read it this week, and I said, and how I got that message was, I was at my friend Wayne's house, and they have worship every time before supper. And guess what they read from? Ruth. And all of a sudden I said, well, I got my sermon for this week. So, things move in strange ways, but I pray that each of you will take it to heart when you see people that need help. Don't run past something too quick. There's a dump down in Keysville. And I went down with my truck and stuff to dump in the dump. And I got to talking to the man that was in charge of making sure everything went right. And, as we talked, I found out he had some heart trouble. It wasn't doing too well. Instead of having prayer with him, I got in the truck and took off, went down the road. I got down past the Baptist church there in Keysville, and I said, you idiot, you had a chance to pray and you didn't do it. Turn around and go back. So I whipped around the middle of the road and went back. Pulled up, he said, were you just here, sir? I said, yeah, but you said you had some health problems, other problems problems like that, and he wasn't doing too good. Do you mind if I pray with you? His eyes flew wide open. You gonna pray for me? I said, yes. He said, sure. And so I prayed for him a good while, and I hope you get better. I found that about a month and a half later, the fellow passed away. But if I hadn't have stopped, turn around and go back, I missed the chance. Because I didn't know what his real problem was. That's where I run into, he runs into them on the school bus, and I run into them on run into people that I talk to. I can catch them while they're jumping. They can't get away. But, it's interesting what you run into. The closing song happens to be 332.